Welcome
Hello,
back,
hello.
guys. Corstian on your left. I'm on your right. We're your hosts for the Mono Mission podcast. So welcome back, episode 116. Um, man, I'm still suffering from that blocked kick, dude. That was rough. That
Yeah.
was so. Even when we do everything right against the Packers,
hmm
we lose on that. And to hear the commentary after the game, I'll say this and I'll say this before. Going into the season, I expected the Bears to win 8 games because it
hmm
was going to be a growing season for Caleb.
hmm
And the fact that people are calling for jobs and not being patient, understanding this is a rookie, still irks me to this day. You cannot expect them to pull a full CJ Stroud. That is very difficult to do.
hmm
And they looked better under Caleb Williams. Yeah, did we give up a few big defensive plays that were not ideal? Yes, we did.
hmm
But if you look at the Bears win-loss record and how they lost certain games, they really should be 6-5 right now. They really should.
hmm
Because you lose on a Hail Mary and a blocked field goal, and suddenly everybody's calling for jobs. Benching Caleb, offensive coordinator gets fired. I will say this. Their offense under Thomas Brown looks very, very different.
hmm
And I think it shows me Eberflus knows what he's doing. He like when you're hiring for an offensive coordinator, it's not just you. It's the owner, it's the GM, it's the philosophy. And I think the Bears erred in trying to find a guy from the Rams system, per se, and get that system run instead of just hiring for an offensive coordinator that is going to know how to script plays, use certain guys,
hmm
and develop their own system around those guys.
hmm
I think that's most important in an offensive coordinator. Like you look at the Lions. Yeah, they have all these trick plays and stuff, but when are they at their best? When they use the high draft capital in their offensive linemen and physical running backs in Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. That's really what the Lions are. The Lions can beat you in multiple ways. They have the trick plays and everything like that. But even their receivers, Laporta, Amon Robinson Brown, like they're physical guys. You do not want you do not want streaking at you. They have internal toughness. Jared Goff, one of the most resilient QBs in the league. When you look back at Dan Campbell's press conference and he's talking about we're gonna bite off kneecaps, I think people got lost in the actual figurative language of the kneecaps and wasn't paying attention to what he was talking about.
hmm
Like the whole analogy is like if you knock us down, here's what we're doing on our way back up
hmm
because we're getting back up. And right before he started that paragraph, he's like, "This city's been battered, it's been bruised. That whole team in Detroit is built on resilience, and their offensive play caller is faced like that. They have a common philosophy in how they're going to play. Buffalo, same idea. They could throw all these guys at. Yeah, sure, Amari Cooper is really nice, but when are they at their best? When Josh Allen can be free and is doing Josh Allen things. When you're trying to script him into like a certain offensive type, he is not as good. It's
hmm
knowing, and Joe Brady saw that. That was the big difference. Look at Buffalo; they had to change offensive coordinators, but nobody was calling for like McDermott's job and Bean's job after like they fell to 4-6. So, do I think the Bears are going to pick the playoffs? This division is very rough because you also got the NFC and you got what the um, NFC South is doing as well,
hmm
and not to mention all 3 teams in the NFC North above them look brilliant.
hmm
Like unless the Packers take a severe stumble, I don't think it's happening. Um, but I think it was important to get the right guy in place, and I think with Thomas Brown,
hmm
I can at least say for certain, like he understands the meaning of like the running and the passing game and how to marry them and how to get his players the ball and how to script plays that make sense and put the offensive line in advantage. Like Caleb Williams wasn't pressured that much at all. I think only his final drive you sacked back to back. Other
hmm
than that, like he had a lot of great time to go for his reads and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
It remains to be seen whether Thomas Brown can build a full philosophy like I was given in analogies for Detroit and Buffalo, but I'm liking what I see so far. It's not looking good as win-loss record, but I think this year is more about than win-loss record. It's like, are we headed in the right direction where we can grow offensively from year 1 to year 2? That's what really matters. Then you can start to talk about competing and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I think the fan base got lost in saying like, "Oh, you got all these weapons, like we should make the playoffs." And it's like,
Mhm.
no, it doesn't automatically mean that.
Mhm.
There's yeah, this is a playoff worthy team, but you have to have the coaching staff and the surrounding cast
Mhm.
to help Caleb grow. And they didn't complete the growth part on the supporting cast and the offensive lineman and an offensive coordinator who can build around his players' strengths and weaknesses. They didn't find that in the first half of the year.
Mhm.
Sam Baltimore might be a good offensive coordinator for somebody else. He didn't know how to utilize the talent he had to their capability.
Mhm. Yeah. It's a tricky situation for the Bears. Yeah, I think their playoff chances are pretty unlikely on the NFL playoff picture page or whatever. Beating the Vikings this week gives them a 2% shot to make the playoffs. So it's quite a long shot, but I mean, 2% something, I guess. I don't know. But with the coaching situation, I still think, I mean, there's still time in the season left, but I do think Eberflus is a little bit in the hot seat regardless. And like, I think my biggest knock on him is like a lot of times, um, you'll have like coaches and like specifically defensive coaches that with their younger quarterbacks, they put a little bit too much pressure on like avoiding mistakes. Um, and so that results in like less risk taking plays because I think in the first couple weeks of the season we saw Caleb Williams make a lot of like risky plays. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't quite work out. But I mean that's just part of the growing process. But then I think because the Bears were at least at a point in the season where it's like, oh, we can be a playoff team. The team almost got more conservative in like what they wanted to do on offense because they wanted to avoid mistakes. And I think we see that with like just the fact that Caleb Williams has not thrown a touchdown in the last 4 weeks. But he also hasn't thrown an interception in the last 4 weeks. And so it's like, sure, the lack of interceptions is a good thing, but also with a rookie quarterback, if you're seeing that without the touchdown, like to, you know, boost his stats overall, it kind of seems like it may be an internal coaching issue with the fact that like there's a lot of pressure from the coaching staff on Caleb Williams to be like, hey, we can't have you making mistakes. We need to win games. So like we need to play smart, only throw it to the open guy, don't make risky plays. Um, which I think has caused more detriment to the Bears this season overall and may have slightly hampered Caleb Williams' development the past couple weeks.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think it's more to it than that. I think it's more of like Caleb's making really good decisions. Like, yeah, the touchdown numbers aren't there, but he is not making back-breaking mistakes. Like Jordan Love's interception, like in the red zone, was horrible. Like there
Mm-hmm.
were no mechanics. He panicked, he threw it off his back foot,
Mm-hmm.
and it went nowhere near to die. Like that was just you can't have that happen. And the positive sign I'm seeing from Caleb is he's not making the fatal mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and
What
I think
what
yeah.
he
Go ahead.
probably needs to clean up is, if anything, he's trying to make a play happen too much to the point that he's taking sacks, and that's just part of like learning on like how NFL pass rushes are different from like college pass rushes. Against Green Bay, he was doing really good at like finding space to run the ball and stuff. So I think he's
Mm-hmm.
slowly figuring it out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like we knew going to season, the offensive line was going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That was no like that was nothing new. Other outside of Darnell Wright and Tevin Jenkins, the rest of that offensive line's a problem. But the
Mm-hmm.
way Thomas Brown schemed plays open to put Braxton Jones in like ideal environments, like the other guys, like in ideal environments, like that is what you want to see. Like on DeAndre Swift's touchdown run, like Braxton Jones was out in the perimeter, like shoving guys, pancaking guys, and he said this in his press conference. That's like the best. That's the best type of like action he's good at as an offensive lineman, like getting out in space, shoving people, getting in front of people, like that. That is what you want. Like I don't think offensive linemen want to stand still and block all the time. Like they want to be involved in like screens, like pulls, like and stuff. Like that's and then you have like false starts and penalties and stuff like that, where it's just like mental mistakes on the offensive side of the ball. And for a guy like Caleb, he was taking way too many sacks. I think he leads the league in sacks by a wide margin. And they're not helping with chipping like pass rushers, putting the right guys in environments to chip pass rush. They still have Travis Homer on the roster, but they had not used him in pass protection to this date during the regular season. They're not chipping with Komet. They're not targeting Komet as often. Like we saw all of that change under Brown. So that's what at least we say it's not even. And like other than the Cardinals game, that defense has been holding people to like 20 points and below. Like they've been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And Eberflus has done this before. People have commented about the Bears being the worst team in the league before, in seasons before, and he managed to guide this team to 8-9, go on a wild winning streak last year. Like to me, that means something, and to expect that out of a rookie quarterback in this group is frankly unfair. I was really surprised when they were 4-2, but if they hit 8 wins and Caleb's showing progress like this back half of the season, I think it's worth keeping Eberflus. But if nothing changes and suddenly the defense can't figure it out, I would fire him. I like Eberflus, but I'd fire him because you're assuming the defense is going to be good. They're constantly adjusting, and Caleb's getting better. But like if the rest of the team doesn't perform up to snuff, like that's going to be they can lose if they lose close games and they're constantly losing close games. I would keep them. But if they're getting blown out after blowout after blowout and the team looks checked out and whatnot, I'd fire them. I think they spent way too long getting over one Hail Mary pass, where I think now they're starting to. I think this loss was a confidence builder because they should have won and they played well. Now they just got to continue playing the way they do.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, the point that you even made with, like, his decision-making, I think is, like, partially the point that I'm making where, like, honestly, I feel like I'd rather see Caleb Williams in, like, one of these 4 games that he hasn't thrown anything for, really, to have 2 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions because, like, sure, the interceptions suck, but, like, I think, like, the decision of of only making, like, the safe throws leads to him holding onto the ball longer, which makes it tougher for the O-line, which leads to him like running.
But he's not taking them sometimes. He's not taking them sometimes. Like he does not take them the check down at times, and that's to me it's maybe you see the flashes in Caleb, but I think it's too early to assume like the coach is telling them to play a certain way or not. I think
well, I mean, like,
it's Caleb's figuring it out sometimes. So
it's a historical problem with defensive head coaches with rookie or younger quarterbacks that like they tip like because they're so focused on like the defense and keeping the defense fresh. They want the quarterback. Their main priority is to limit turnovers on the offensive side of the ball, especially just with the defensive mindset and how impactful those turnovers are. And so, like, it inevitably turns into a lot of young quarterbacks not making like interception-worthy throws in attempts to like make a good ball. Like, because like even if these like Caleb Williams, I think he can hit most any throw. I mean, his deep throw is kind of like so right now. It's developable, but like, like I think he's the type of quarterback that can hit a lot of good throws, and I think we've seen that like against the Jaguars when he threw 4 touchdowns. But then it's like but then like a lot of times it is the coaching staff that goes about and saying, hey, like we need to like cut down on turnovers because it's like sure the Jacksonville game was good, but you still threw that interception. We can't be having that against bad teams. And then that gets into the mind of the quarterback. And I'm not saying like this isn't an exclusively a Bears problem. It's like just historically with defensive minded head coaches, we see this a lot with young quarterbacks. And so that's why I'm making these speculations with Eberflus and Caleb Williams right now, just because historically that's what we've seen throughout the league. And so like
and then you look at guys like McDermott, like, and McDermott's been a super successful defensive coordinator, like, and defensive head coach and whatnot. I like John Harbaugh, special teams type coordinator, like great mind. You look at Jesse Minter and like his defensive coaching prowess and on the Chargers is like before that Bengals game, holding teams to 12 points. Like I get what you're saying on the defensive head coaching side of it. I just think this is not the most applicable case with Caleb, because when I look at Eberflus, I think he puts full trust in his offensive and defensive coaches to do their jobs. And yeah, he might call plays on the defensive end. He might step up. But think about last year. They lost Alan Williams. He just resigned out of the blue. There was some shady stuff going on. I don't know what happened to him. People forget, like, he just resigned out of the blue in the middle of the season. And Eberflus had to pick up that defense, get him out of a slump, and they somehow stumbled to 8-9 with Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, again, young QB, he was playing comfortably. Like, in the beginning of the season was rough. But, like, in the middle of the season, you saw that switch and you saw him develop. I still think that's capable with Caleb. I needed to see this game under Thomas Brown to be like, okay, they made a right decision letting go of Shane Waldron here.
I mean, yeah, Shane Waldron sucks.
Can they turn it? I think what I took away from this game is the Bears might have found something. The Bears might have found something offensively, and I think it will follow with the rest of this team. So.
Yeah, but then it's like if Caleb, like, I don't think this is gonna happen, but like if Caleb Williams throws 0 more touchdowns and 0 more interceptions, but is always having 200-ish pass yards the rest of the year, like, I feel like I'd be concerned about the coaching staff as a Bears fan perspective. Obviously, this is the first game with a new offensive coordinator, but like, if that keeps happening, but you're like, well, the offense, they put up the yardage, it just like they couldn't close out games like with the touchdowns, like at least from the passing game. Like how much do you let that happen for the sake of Caleb Williams is making he's making good decisions, but isn't getting any touchdowns for those. You know, it's like how much do you give and take in that situation? Because you have to consider Bears haven't had a passing touchdown in the last 4 games.
Yeah, they've all been running touchdowns. Like Roshan Johnson, last guy to score was in Washington, and then he scored again. And they have DeAndre Swift, like, hitting explosive plays. I think the touchdowns will come. I think we're looking at these past 4 games and thinking about, like, Waldron had a bad series of games.
Yeah.
And even before that, questionable play calling.
Yeah.
I think the Bears need to have this game under their belt and be like, okay, this is what we're capable on offense. Let's play more loose. We have a guy we're confident in, an offensive coordinator. I think they needed to get this game under the belt where they're like, okay, now we can roll.
Yeah, because like I don't like comparing the rookie quarterbacks all too much, but like I look at Drake May, and he has more touchdowns than Caleb Williams is on the season, and I'm like sure, May has made maybe worse passes at times, but like you're seeing that like he can ball out if he needs to as a quarterback. And so like if I'm like a Patriots fan right now, I'd be feeling really good about, you know, the fact that we managed to land Drake May, and maybe like feeling some concern about Caleb Williams. Again, they're all rookies, so like it's all with a grain of salt, but like the fact that Drake May with 4 less games has more touchdowns than Caleb Williams. Offensive coordinator, I know that's what we're talking about right now, but like just coaching staff in general, it is like a minor concern of mine if I were a Bears fan.
Yeah, I mean, valid. We'll see what happens next week. I mean, I'll definitely keep tabs on this now that you mentioned it to me. But they have been getting the rushing touchdowns, I think. I think the key thing is like getting a passing game and concepts that work. But okay, let's move on to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Very impressive win without Dalton Kincaid. Hurt team in general. They just took out the champs at home in a
hmm
sensational game. Um, Hats off to Buffalo. Are they the team to beat in the AFC now?
Like I feel like Buffalo's definitely a scarier team, I think, to go head to head against. Um, like, well, because like with the Chiefs, like almost all like I think 7 of their wins are within like 1 score possession games. Um, and so it's like they were winning, and like what the scary thing was is like even though it was close games, it was the fact that they're able to be so methodical in like the last 2 drives of games to close them out, which makes them, I think, still just as scary the rest of the season. But I think, like, if I was a team, I think the Bills would strike more fear into me going head to head than the Chiefs would right now.
I agree. And I look at the pass rush like the Buffalo had against Mahomes. It looked different than like years past. Like earlier, whenever they faced the Chiefs, they would not get any pass rush whatsoever.
Mhm.
And their linebackers with Bernard and like their back half, really solid job. Like they were sound in coverage. They did everything they could to frustrate the Chiefs. Land sacks, like use that home crowd environment. They have so much diversity on the offensive end now with Amari Cooper, Shakir putting up absurdly great numbers, James Cook, and then Dalton Kincaid was not on the field, but like,
Mhm.
and I look at Josh Allen, he's making great decisions. Like you
Yeah.
can't play him one way. Like I'd say yes, I'd say yes, they
Mhm.
are the team to beat. Um, Now it remains to be seen, can they do it in the playoffs? Because they've just had a string of unlucky play against the Chiefs the past few playoffs. Like
Mhm.
they should have beaten them like more than half the time, and they weren't able to do so. So we'll see. But right now, I'd say yes.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like you could probably find that as a decently common consensus throughout the league, at least with fans. But yeah.
I mean, let's see. They Chiefs coming like going into this game, they won 15 straight games
Mhm.
from last season. Like, and they were last beaten by the Las Vegas like Raiders.
Mhm.
But just like I look at quotes from like Trent McDuffie just reading this and saying, okay, there were times that they were defending as they wanted to, but like he still made plays. Like I don't think this defense for the Chiefs, as elite as they are, they can they seem to have the right initial answers, but they can't exactly get get ahead of Allen. And
Mhm.
with the way Allen's playing and the way how free he is, it's not forcing it to one target. Like
Mhm.
this is the Bills at their best, man. They're a physical team. Ray Davis adds a different element to their team as well. And Von Miller didn't even play, I think.
He
Or
did. He
no,
had a
he did.
sack, like
He
a
did.
10-yard sack or something
He
in
did.
the fourth quarter.
But Russo looked better. Epinesa looked better.
Mhm.
Like, don't forget they have Ed Oliver still. So like they're back. They're
Mhm.
back.
Yeah. And like Josh Allen is an MVP candidate. Currently, I think the front runner right now for a reason. Like, and I think that's like it's hard to account for a quarterback of Josh Allen's tier because like that 4th and 2 touchdown run play with Josh Allen was ridiculous. Like he was just like bowling people down, like as he's scrambling out of the pocket. And then just like him getting hit at like the 2-yard line just for him to like keep moving forward and getting into the end zone is crazy.
It's built different though.
hmm
Another great game. Bengals and the Chargers.
hmm
Like, man, I thought the Bengals were about to get routed, and then they instantly come back. And I was texting you this. The last 2 minutes of their game,
hmm
there's been like 5 or 6 possessions between these teams. Like nobody could buy like a score.
hmm
And the Bengals, very, very similar to the Bears, have just had unlucky losses.
hmm
They technically should have swept the Ravens and they
Mhm.
lost both games to the Ravens off of the weirdest like Evan McPherson misses. Like,
Mhm.
and going into this game, you're like, wow, if they're able to come all the way back, then like it's wraps. It's
Mhm.
wraps.
Yeah.
And what does Evan McPherson do? On back-to-back possessions, the guy misses a
Mhm.
field goal. And like it was a miracle they even got the off the field once on defense, like after
Mhm.
that first miss. But like you give a guy like Justin Herbert who absolutely balled out of his mind.
Mhm.
He was hitting seam routes, deep
Mhm.
corners, like this he was unstoppable.
Mhm.
Um, if you get that guy short field, you're asking for trouble. And then J.K.
Mhm.
Dobbins, favorite comeback of the player of the year so far, had 115 yards on the ground,
Mhm.
and for the air. Um, just fantastic. And they
Mhm.
did all this without Khalil Mack. So um, kind of impressive actually.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, the Chargers are looking like a scarier and scarier team like each week pretty much. Like I'm excited for their game this week as well because I believe they go against the Ravens. And so Chargers Ravens should be another kind of classic showdown. Um yeah.
Buy low on Dobbins while we're at it too.
Mhm.
Like the fact that he's showing out this year, he still has what it
Mhm.
takes. Quentin Johnson, great touchdown throw.
Mhm.
I still love Lab McConkey.
He's so
Lab
good.
McConkey's his separation is unreal.
Mhm.
Unreal, dude. Like the
Mhm.
staircase routes like he runs is like wow. Like
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
not often like it's I drafted him in leagues thinking like okay, it'd be nice. He's the leading target on the Chargers and he looks like the primary threat right now. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very surprised, even
Uh-huh.
though I thought this is possible.
Yeah. Yeah, in a different dynasty league that I'm in, I drafted Lad McConkey at the bottom of the first. It was just one quarterback, so I got him at the bottom of the first. Just like I'll have him ride my bench for pretty much year one with my other receivers on there. But now it's in a spot where like it's nice to have him because I can just start him and like feel pretty confident about what he's going to do week in and week out, pretty much rest of the season, which is nice.
There you go. Yeah. And from the Bengals side of it, like, man, like I don't know what you do from here. Joe
Hmm.
Burrow's playing out of his mind. Should have won that game.
Hmm.
Jamar Chase has been like absolutely proving himself as the best receiver in the NFL this year.
Hmm.
Unbelievable games he's played. Um, they just
Yeah.
all that offensive production, and then they have the league leader in sacks,
Uh huh.
and they just can't get out of their own way. Like especially defensively, they just can't get out of their own way.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think for the Bengals to make the playoffs, it does seem like they have to win out, um, which is technically possible, but like they have a couple tough. I mean, they faced the Steelers twice, and even though the Steelers did not score a touchdown this last week and still won somehow, they are still what like 8-2 or whatever. So it's gonna be a tough game for both those times. They faced the Broncos, I think, week 16, 17, I think. Um, yeah, and so I mean, Cowboys, Titans, Browns should be fairly easy wins for them, but it is scary for like the playoff chances for them just because they're sitting at 4-7 right now. Hopefully, like after this bye week, they can figure something out with their defense. Because more or less it is their defense that kind of holds them back with how insane Burrow and Chase have been this year. But yeah.
But they've been typically really like middle of the pack and like low key good.
Hmm.
Like low key, like this is a Lou Anarumo like coach. I love Lou Anarumo,
Hmm.
but I think this is more of like a players kind of thing where they're just not connected at all.
Hmm.
And you miss guys like BJ Hill and DJ Reader, like
Hmm.
that's gonna matter, man. It
Hmm.
matters.
Yeah, I mean, you look at when the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, like they had a pretty strong defense to complement the offense. But now you're looking at the defense. Sure, they have the sack leader, but like, and then I know there's two or three other guys that I think are pretty prolific on the Bengals as well. I don't remember who they are off the top of my head, but like I know it's like 3 or 4 pretty good players on the Bengals defense, and then the rest of that I know most Bengals fans aren't the greatest fans of. So, like, I think it's like seems like a long shot to make the playoffs, but at this point, it's like mostly a lost season. It feels, but they are like the best, probably 4-7 football team you'll ever see.
100%.
But if they struggle a little bit, if they're at like 8-9 or something like that, at the end of the season, that'll give them maybe like around the fifth, like a top 15 draft pick, maybe.
See that.
Which will be nice for them to like get another established guy on defense, to like solidify that, and maybe, and they should, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're back top of the AFC race next season, but this season seems a bit tough for them.
Okay. Alrighty. Talk to me about what you saw in the Broncos and the Falcons games.
Is it, I think it's safe to say Bo Nix is in this offensive rookie of the year conversation right now. It's pretty nice to see our 12th overall rookie absolutely balling out against some of these teams. 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 80% completion with an offense that was considered the worst unit of football in the league at the start of the season. It's pretty nice to see. Yeah, because I saw somewhere like all like the main 4 rookie quarterback touchdown stats, and Bo has 19 touchdowns on the season. Jayden Daniels has 14, Drake May's at 10, and Caleb Williams is at 9. And so just like, I didn't think Bo Nix was going to be this, like, have this many touchdowns at the start of the season, but we're here. He has 19 touchdowns. I'm pretty happy, but outside of like his just insane game, really the defense was on fire. Like they were more or less clamping up like Bijan Robinson like with the rush attack, because like most of the season Robinson has been pretty just unstoppable, it feels, but he felt like he had kind of a down game. Kirk Cousins was struggling. I think there's like cornerbacks were locking down players. Drake London had a couple good plays where he had like big yardage chunks that he broke out for, but like I think a lot of young guys that were on like that cusp of like, oh, will they develop this year? Will they not develop this year? Kind of like started to develop, because like you look at Nick Bonito, right? Like his rookie year, what year is he in? I think year 3. But his rookie year, his like big issue was run stop, which I still think is a little bit of a weakness of his. But he did really nothing 2 years ago, his rookie season. But you look at him now, and he's tied for second place in sacks in the league right now. And like, I don't think anybody particularly expected that out of Nick Bonito of all people to be second in sacks, or tied for second in sacks. And you got Jonathan Cooper on the other side, who's around 7-ish sacks, I'd like to say. And so it's like so I think it's like a lot of pieces just came together to like actually develop over the course of the offseason. Because like going into this season, right, I felt like off-ball linebacker was kind of like a maybe bottom half of the league, maybe like ranked 20th or whatever positionally. I thought pass rush was one of the weaknesses of the team. There's a lot of question marks around cornerback too. How would the secondary look without Justin Simmons in it, But then like the Broncos, I think they're top 5 in both rush and pass yardage allowed in the league this season. Riley Moss has been a really good cornerback too, to opposite of Pat Surtain. Brandon Jones has been a great replacement for Justin Simmons over the course of the season. He's balling out.
How's Zach Allen looking?
Zach Allen's looking phenomenal. I think I have no concerns about the interior defensive line, which is crazy to say. It's like Broncos. Yeah, they've impressed me a lot. I didn't think they'd be doing this good this season. Like, I know we joked. Well, I joked that like, oh, Broncos go 17-0 every season, but like, I was like, honestly, Broncos going into the season, I'm like maybe a 4 to 6 win team, just like if guys aren't developing, right? I mean, I think that's pretty understandable to foresee with rookie quarterback. You don't know who your QB or your CB2 is. You have
And the
Cortland
wide
Sutton.
receivers are like outside of Cortland, like very shaky, very
Yeah.
shaky.
And so like Devon Vele has been an extremely pleasant surprise. It's kind of funny. He's older than Lil Jordan Humphrey for some reason. He's like 26 as a rookie, but he makes a lot of crazy catches. He seems to be kind of the go-to guy on third and fourth down. Troy Franklin has, gotten better over the course of the season. And so it's like a fourth, I think, round guy, like you're like, oh, we'll see how he does. He's getting active playing time. And like, I think a lot of it is just like George Payton has been excellent at drafting talent over these past 3 years. Because I saw this whole like read up about the Broncos draft classes, and it's like, let me look this up. Broncos draft classes. You can talk about the game if you want to, real quick.
I didn't watch it. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, you just look at the draft, and you look at what people were saying about Bo Nix, and this is the classic age argument, where just because the guy's older, we don't want him. Used goods. Pretty much the same thing with Penix. It's like, guys, it doesn't take a certain age to know how to play the game of football. Some people might do it by year 3. Some people might do it by year 8. Some people will be like C.J. Stroud and instantly figure it out.
Yeah.
And to label him as less than the others at the start of the draft always like irked me, because it's just like they're all different systems. But it seems like the systems are just leaning on what the experts are saying, and it's like, no. What does the guy actually do on the field? And all Bo Nix does was compete at Oregon even before that. And I think you saw that. So
yeah,
to see how he's doing now compared to like what people were saying about the draft, pleasant surprise for sure.
Yeah, I found the draft picks. So starting from 2021. So round 1, Broncos select Patrick Surtain, which I think, I mean, you
take that 10 out of 10 times every time. Yeah.
Right. Javonte Williams in the second round. He's had his issues with injuries. We'll see how his career goes on from here, but he's been an all right running back, I guess. But then in the third round, you pick Quinn Miners, who has been one of the best right guards in the league for like since he was drafted. And so the fact that you have a, probably top like 1 or 2 cornerback based off your opinion, you probably got a top like 3 to 5 offensive guard or right guard at least in the third round here. Then you got, and then you had a couple guys that didn't pan out with injuries, but then in the 7th round, you get Jonathan Cooper, who they just signed to a 4-year, $60 million contract. So you get like 4 starters there. And then 2022, you get Nick Bonito, who is, second place in the sack race. And he was a second round pick too, pick 64. So like the very end of the second round, you get your other star pass rusher. And then Luke Wattenberg, who's been the starting center this season, which, you get 2 decent guys there. Damari Mathis is up to your own interpretation, I guess. 2023, Marvin Mims. We'll see how he turns out, but he's been a lead at, kick punt returns. Drew Sanders, who was hurt this year, so we don't know. Riley Moss in the third round, who is the starting number 2 cornerback and is like locked down guys throughout the season.
I'm getting so overwhelmed just hearing this list, man. They absolutely killed it.
Yeah, JL Skinner in the 6th round is one of like the leading guys on like kick coverage for the Broncos here. So then you have 3 like contributors from the 2023 draft out of 5 picks. And then you look at the 2024 picks with Bo Nix. Obviously, it's Bo Nix. Jonah Ellis. He has like 4-ish sacks, I think. He was drafted in the 3rd round.
Jeez.
Troy Franklin, who has made starting reps. Chris Abrams-Drain, he hasn't done much. But then you have Audric Estime, who is very much in the running back rotation, drafted in the 5th round. And then
he could lead that backfield next year.
Yeah, and then you got Devon Vele, who is like in the 7th round, the go-to third down like receiver target. So you have 1, 2, 5 out of 3, 4, 5, 7. 5 out of 7 picks are contributors to this Broncos team right now from this 2024 class. And so like
Wow.
these past 4 years of draft classes have just been absolute money. And I think that is what led the Broncos to being like as competitive as they are this season. And like because it is such a young roster, like we didn't see the development right away. It took time to develop these guys, but now these
Right.
guys are entering being basically getting more seasons under their belt, seeing the development. I think the coaching situation is looking good. I think everybody's happy with the coaches right now, and so it's starting to kind of like mesh together.
Yeah. I'm happy, man. I'm happy, man. They're at a spot where they're best. I wish the Bears could be at. Like that's the way that team is all headed in one direction and unfazed by that Kansas City block was. Yeah, that's what you want to happen at a team. So I think they're in the right headspace. I worry about their matches with the Chargers. That's going to be interesting to see. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Last topic for the day. Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders have not been playing well recently. Lost 2 games right in a row. We found out that Jalen Hurts actually suffered a left rib injury. Um, do you think teams have slowly figured out like what Daniels can do and what he can't do, or was this more about the injury?
Yeah.
The injury deliverables. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a little bit injuries. I mean, you look at the game against the Eagles, right? And like he didn't have a great rushing game, which I think you can put up a little bit to that injury. But also you look at like because it really is just like the last 2 games, at least like whether or not you think he played good in the past couple wins that they've had, the last 2 games were losses. But they were also against the Steelers and the Eagles, like which are like what, like the one in or it's like the 2 seed in the NFC and the 3 seed in the AFC. So it's like it's not like he struggled to poor competition, if anything, But I think, I mean, like he's slowed down a little bit. I think in comparison to the beginning hype of the season, and like I think we'll see. I think the big test will be these next 3 weeks for the Commanders here, though, because like he kind of has easier competition to go against, and it's like if he continues to struggle against these guys, maybe it's like, oh, they kind of need to get to the next steps of what they can do with Jayden Daniels. But then like if he does good in these games, then I think it's like, oh, he just got to find his rhythm again. And I don't know. That's my take on it at least. But what do you think?
Yeah. It's kind of like in short, the kind of season is having is eerily similar to Robert Griffin III. Very, very similar. If you look at their stats comparisons.
Yeah.
Like that their first 6 to 8 games. So I'm just pulling this up here. Let's see. So Robert Griffin, 15 games, 65.6 completion percentage, yards 3,200, yards per completion 8.1, yards per game 213.3. Jayden obviously played in 10. Completion percentage is 68.7, 3.1% better than Griffin. 8.2 yards per completion, and yards per game very similar, 214.7. You look at their play styles, it was like exactly the same. Once Washington had that on their team, they looked amazing. But I think the key overarching concept with like guys like Caleb, Bo Nix, like and here with Jayden Daniels is this is how it typically goes when you play in the league. Usually like opponents will play like base defenses. They don't want to get too complex, especially in the beginning when they're trying to see like, oh, do our play calls align? It makes sense. Then you see here, like see rookie quarterback have success against man coverage, and then you're like, oh, what if we blitz him? What's gonna happen? And then once he overcomes like the blitz, then it's like, how do you overcome zone? Can you make sure that you identify the right guy in zone every single time, depending on what the coverage is?
Yeah.
Like, and then each passing week, he's played what 8 games so far. That's one more game of defensive intel you can get on Daniels and how you play around him. You look at the Steelers game, and then you look at the Eagles game the past 2 weeks. It looks like as long as you control your pass rush, You have athletic guys who can get to him. He's got no chance. He's got absolutely no chance out there.
Yeah, but also like at least against the Eagles, Terry McLaurin was absolutely locked up that game. Like he could not like get open against the Eagles, which I mean like
Quinyon Mitchell, though, he's having a phenomenal season, man.
yeah, like he's insane. And like obviously it's like you got to be able to be better than just your like number one receiver. But like like if you you look at all other teams in the league too, it's like if you can't get the ball to your number one receiver, you typically won't have as much success. Like if Justin Jefferson got locked up for an entire game and like had like 2 catches for 6 yards, I wouldn't necessarily expect the Vikings to win that game. If Jamar Chase is getting like the same exact stat line, I mean T Higgins is also really good, but like in that case, like I feel like it's harder to expect the Bengals to win a game like that if the top guy, like if AJ Brown's getting absolutely locked up during a game, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles struggled offensively, and so like it's and then now you're looking at like Jayden Daniels as a rookie quarterback, his number one guy gets locked up. Your number 2 is who? Like Noah Brown? Who's the other guy?
Not Jahan Dodson. He moved
Diane
on.
Brown, I think.
Then Luke McCaffrey.
Right, and so it's like,
and it's a chaos, yeah.
And so it's like there's only so much you can do beyond your number one guy. And so if he's getting shut down, it is trickier, to win these games. Yeah, and so again, I think like we both said, like just how the games, I think it's like Cowboys, Titans, and I think the Saints are the next 3 games for the Commanders. And so if even in like one of those games he looks like himself again, I think I won't be as concerned. But yeah.
No, it's it's fair. I think the overall point though is like you're a rookie quarterback coming into the league. Most coordinators don't know how to play you. They're trying to figure out what you do well and what you don't do well.
Yeah.
And then as you get through the half of the season, teams almost have an entire encyclopedia on like how you play. Just look at the Rams against the Bears, like in 2018, they struggled every time they faced them. But the Bears played them the exact same way New England played them like 4 or 5 weeks later, and you almost could get nothing out of it. So it's I don't know, man. I'm kind of like in the wait and see approach. There's some things he could do better. Not to say that he shouldn't win Rookie of the Year. I'm not saying that at all. But it's kind of one of those things where just hold your horses. There might be something there where like the back half of the year doesn't look as great, and then we're looking at, oh, teams figure him out like in the passing game wise.
So. Yeah. But then it was again like 2 pretty tough teams he had to go against the last 2 weeks, and he was technically like 1 score within winning the games too. And so like
only guy had entered the neutral zone, they would have had a chance.
Yeah. The Commanders-Eagles game was pretty exciting. Like the fact that they managed to get the 2-point conversion or whatever with Zach Ertz, I think, with that crazy toe tap, was pretty.
That's another guy Daniels has at least. Like Zach Ertz still looks good out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, guys, that'll do it for us. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Oh wait,
episode
upset of the week, right?
Oh, right. You remember this time. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I got you credit. I have to give you credit where you deserve.
Who
you got?
Okay, looking at the schedules right now.
Yeah, I know. It's so low for me too. Just scrolling up here.
You think Panthers are beating the Chiefs this week?
It's a trap game, dude. I'm telling you, they look. Bryce Young looks better. Like,
he does.
I think we'll have to talk about him next week because I think what he's going through right now is very similar to what Drew Brees went through with the Chargers.
Yeah,
and I think he's about to be like he's gonna have a strong second half of the season, and I think his third season is where we're really gonna see the growth. He's looking good and making like great decisions and playing with himself. So, maybe the Chiefs are reeling right now.
Yeah. I think a potential one could be Rams beating the Eagles, but maybe.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. Yeah, next week we should talk a little about the playoff race now that we're getting a little bit past the halfway point of the season.
That would be exciting.
Mhm.
My upset probably besides Bears over Vikings. I'm gonna say the Colts over the Lions.
Mhm.
I'm looking at Anthony Richardson, man. Like
Mhm.
I didn't watch the game in super detail, but he had a good outing against the Jets, and
Yeah.
he has a cannon of an arm to keep up with Detroit. So that will be
Yeah.
interesting to see. Like I'm very curious to see how the Colts
Mhm.
handle what all the Lions bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick on Anthony Richardson. I do think that the benching overall helped because I think he looks a little. I think he does look a little bit better than when he was just a couple weeks ago. And so I think it was just like a really nice mental reset for him to like close out the season strong. So I think he's fully capable of it. He still struggled a little bit on the shorter passes, but like, I mean, a win's a win. You pretty much effectively knocked the Jets out of the playoff conversation with that loss.
They're not competing in the playoffs.
Bro,
Not a chance.
man, I remember last week you're like Jets maybe, and then now we're like not a chance.
The Colts game was one they had to have, and they just continue to disappoint. So like, and I might have missed it, but the GM's fired, right, for the Jets.
Yeah, they fired the GM.
I really like Joe Douglas too, so that was that's interesting. That is very interesting. It looks, and what do you want to bench Rodgers on top of it? It just looks like a dumpster fire all the way. And I'm pretty
Yeah,
disappointed because I gave myself hope thinking they'd be completely different.
yeah, like they again, it's like they have a lot of players that can be good. It just doesn't seem like it happened to work out. And I understand like the GM firing there with just like the drafts have been good, but just how poorly the Aaron Rodgers trade has kind of ended up resulting for them. It's like with just the continual lack of success with the team despite good drafts. Yeah.
I mean, the first year, like you can't do anything about it. But I do think they could have planned better for when Rodgers went down. Like that was like icing on the
Yeah.
cake. It was easier. But
Yeah.
that's it for us, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, and I'll take your advice, Corstian. We'll start talking playoff picture. Yes, thank you. Follow us at Amon.8.mission on our Instagram and on our YouTube channel at Amon Mission. You guys have a great week. We'll see you later.
Peace.